seems as though there's just a whole lot of information is coming our way. I wanted to point out to you that today is the anniversary of the liberation of Dachau, which happened on April 29th, 1945.
Is your microphone on?
It's on. Is it loud enough? Maybe sit in the front. There. There seems to be a place where all of that happens. We're really pleased to have our speaker here today. I'd like to thank Ilka for her efforts in finding someone who could come to speak with us, not only with experience, but also with authority. And without further ado,
Professor Rwanda, a quarterly multidisciplinary magazine on the Rwandan experience, published in English, French, and Kinyarwanda, the language in Rwanda. She has also translated the Book of the Mormons into Kinyarwanda, and is the president of the Friends of Rwanda Association, which is a relief organization working especially with the orphan children, many orphan children, in fundraising, information, and organizing. And on May 9th, there's going to be a big benefit, and she will tell you more about that. And we have some leaflets here. There'll be a big fundraising event, a night of Rwandan music, dancing, and food in Sacramento. She is the president of she was the president of the African Students Association at Cal State at Sacramento, and co-founder of the Association of Rwandans in the Diaspora. And
boarding school far away from home, and they had the list, and they said all the Tutsi children have to get out. That was at night, we were asleep, and we had to get out of school. And that was the first time I started my road to exile. You know, before we could actually go and say goodbye to the parents, we went to Congo, that used to be called Zaire, then we went to Burundi, and most of my teenage years and, you know, my young adulthood were spent in Burundi. I saw my parents again 5 years later, although they thought we were dead. They never saw us between the time we were in that high school to the moment we left. And that was a common occurrence in Rwanda for the Tutsis. Although what has been publicized as the genocide that took place in 1994, it was a culmination of oppression and discrimination against the Tutsis for most of the years after independence. When I talk about independence, I'm talking about Rwanda since the 1960s, you know, until now. And most of the history of Rwanda, those people lived in a harmonious situation. Although they occupy different functions. You know, you find that, for instance, the Tutsis mostly were tending cattle, they were pastoralists, and the Hutus were agriculturists. They were people who had farms and basically made people live. And they were able to build some kind of interethnic alliances for survival. And there was social mobility. You know, people intermarried. And it was very hard when the genocide began to even know who to kill, because the intermarriages were so hard. But because Rwanda was a patrilineal society, usually the children took the ethnic group of their father. Even if your mother was Tutsi and you were a Hutu, then you were a Hutu and your generation is going to be Hutu. But it presented also some of the most incredible friends. And the problem with this was that when the Belgians came, they didn't really understand the African reality. They didn't understand that kind of relationship among the people and how people could have that social mobility between groups and relying on each other based upon where you were. Instead, the Tutsi and the Hutu became like a social class. And it became static. This is where you belong. Identity cards were issued. So this time you had to carry your identity card, you had to sign where Tutsi, where Hutu. And pretty much also the social mobility stopped. No more intermarriages. Now we started to find that element of superiority, inferiority, and the people came to espouse the same ideology that was put there. And obviously, you can imagine what the European establishment is going to do. At first, they favored the existing power structure. So the Rwanda tribunal can do in Rwanda, in the country. So now we have another division, even among the Tutsis themselves. Because for the sake of unity, for the sake of politics or whatever you look at, the country is releasing criminals. So they are trying to come up with some semblance of justice. Maybe say, okay, if you confess your sins, if you come and say, okay, I accept I've killed the people, my neighbors and so on, then maybe we'll give you a short sentence. Other people were trying to use Christianity. So, they were saying, how many times did Jesus Christ say we should forgive? 49 times. So you can kill 49 times, and maybe you can forgive. So people used all kinds of ways, some kind of symbolic type of justice. And today what is more important is a system called the gacaca. Gacaca is a customary justice. That was it primary. Maybe they can put in place justice, but reconciliation itself will come when people are ready. And one of the things the government can tend to do only design effective policies, help the victims, rape victims, and so on and so forth. And collectively, maybe re-examine the seeds of violence within, look at why it's happening. And then let the people try to come together, create covenants, create symbols of reconciliation, try to reach in the past or the present to see what is holding us together as people. But at the same time, we shouldn't, just to make peace with the guilty, we shouldn't just ignore everything and say everything is fine, patch it up and move on. You have to face it, you have to suffer from it before you can build something very strong. And I found one of the quotes from Albert Einstein really thought-provoking, hoping that next time it won't happen to other countries just because they are tiny countries stuck somewhere in the, in the wilderness of Africa. It shouldn't be as important as other places. And in a way, the whole question of involvement, it comes on the surface again. Where should we involve ourselves? Do we involve because of economic nature, political nature only, because of the interest we have in the region? Or there are some kind of international responsibility for everyone? I mean, at least the members of UN, as they are. And that question for many Rwandans was no. I mean, and for most people, they saw it as a racist thing. That always Africa comes late, and that one of the things I want to say, this is highly political, you can take it with a grain of salt, is that genocide to be stopped is not just about saying that the Tutsis are killing Hutus, so it's a self-defense. Because they felt that collective guilt. They felt that if they say, okay, the Hutus are killing Tutsis in Rwanda, by extension everyone will blame us, so we better start that. So, and it pretty much held that kind of connection we had. Now we are trying to come back and see what went wrong. Because usually in a human response, you hear that I've lost 150 people of my own people. You are a friend, the first thing is to come, at least to come and offer your condolences before you go and say, oh, those Tutsis are bad in here. That's what happened. People were overwhelmed by something that they were not used to in their own experiences, and it divided people across from it. I still have, a brother-in-law who can't forget his sister because she married a Hutu. They don't talk. They don't talk, and they are all educated. They are, but they don't. Say, in the post-genocide Rwanda, I can't understand you can marry. They can't. So it comes both ways, and it's something you just, have to try to deal with. Yeah. Thanks.
There's an interesting comparison here. 300,000 of your people were executed in the genocide, and you have so far found a half a dozen that you want to put on trial. 11 million people were murdered by the Nazis. And Joel, do you know the total number of people on trial?
The first
Nuremberg.
trial, there were 40-some on trial.
40, so I thought less than
There were-
50. 40
But there were lots of other trials.
Yes, but there were lots of other trials, but most of them got some sort of amnesty after 4 or 5 years, you say.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to get by that and move on.
Or move from the, and accept that sense of justice that is sitting together and see why people were able to kill neighbors and so on and so forth. But the degree of responsibility on the other hand is, it's there. It's there. You wouldn't kill your own people if you didn't have that kind of power on top of you telling you what to do.
Yeah.
So if they can at least pursue the instigators, that would be okay for me.
I would like to qualify what you said. You implied that there were lots of Jews that collaborated with the Germans, and that was not the case. But my question is, were there people who rescued? Were there Hutus who rescued Tutsis?
Oh yeah, many. As a matter of fact, although it was genocide of the Tutsis, but the few Hutus who started to oppose it were killed. The first to be killed in that genocide was the prime minister, who happened to be a woman. She was a Hutu. But when she was calling on people to unite instead of starting to kill each other, they killed her. With the people in power now, but we are now ideologically we are not together anymore. The political party in power that used to be reformist and trying to bring people together now is pretty much highly politicized. And we are starting our own thing. So many people, mostly I find it as some kind of cultural thing. Many people were in foreign countries, and one of the things that kept us together, and it was a very strong diaspora because many sent their children to fight and do those stuff, is the culture. We had a very strong culture. And, for instance, the Rwandan experience we were writing was circulated all over the diaspora and pretty much kept up with whatever each one was doing. But also the cultural dance. If you happen to come to the association, we brought some of the best who know the folk tales and traditional dancing, one and that. So those stuff, the biggest problem, that's just a priority now. The priority is for them to survive, to eat, and, have something on the top of their head, have clothes. So far the attainment is and hopefully it will come to that, but as I told you, you are done with the series, right?
No.
Because I have a tiny video I can send you where you see the children reading other children. This is for survival on a daily basis. And when you find a 13-year-old trying to feed the young one so she can go to the local school, because this is what we do. We try to send them to school, and the ones who can't go to school anymore, at least they are teaching them how to sew. So we have, we provided the machines and people who go and teach them. At least they can take care of their family. But when we say, and those children are exploited, we are talking about the exploitation both physical because they have to work, but also sometimes sexual. They provide, at least an adult type of environment. They go and, they want to be called, we are your father, although they are young themselves, they are not. So we are helping that organization. We are in charge of 30,000 children. Yeah. Obviously, and their budget is not that big. Usually per year to survive and to have the school, it's about $4,000. So in one event when we are lucky, we get all the money, we send it, then usually someone among ourselves or the United States, because there are some US people who live there, they take the money because then they don't have to go through hands and stuff like that. But very effective. So every year we have, the main reason we make it a big event is also to try to show our culture. We do the fundraising, we cook, we dance, and this time we invited two incredible performers. This one you put down, we put access to, because during colonialism, what happened in Africa, some countries emerged as giants, like Congo, Nigeria, and some other ones came as midgets, like Rwanda, and didn't have any access to any resources. We had to go through those big countries or to try to get hold of anything. So they believe a strong sense of Pan-Africanism or some kind of regional collaboration among countries can minimize ethnic friction. Because if it allows people to go from one place to another, it can also minimize, that. People are pushing for it, but there are a lot of liabilities and challenges because most countries, I was telling people I can go to Europe. If you go to Europe, you can drive in most European countries in one day and finish. In Africa, Rwanda is the size of Maryland. It's a tiny country. You can actually go from the capital of Rwanda, Kigali, to the capital of Burundi, Bujumbura, in less than 3 hours. But